For Sunday, March 8th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, the State House passes that big transportation package. Beverly Hall dies before her part in the Atlanta cheating trial, and President Obama is headed to Atlanta. There's some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us this day. We are joined today by Theron Johnson, who is sitting in for Jeff Dickerson. Theron, good to have you.
Good to see you.
Always a source of insider information. Well, we've talked about this state house, the state legislative debate over the transportation package for almost a year now. But the fact is, this week something happened, something big. The bill that's aimed at raising $1 billion to meet current needs passed the House, but it was bumpy. In fact, I didn't think it was going to happen that way.
Well, as we all witnessed, there was a lot of legislative gymnastics this past week in the House of Representatives. This big tax hike, I thought, was going to go down and be reduced. Larry O'Neill, the Republican majority leader, wanted to reduce it, which would have left a $350 million hole. The argument was we need this for bridges, infrastructure maintenance, which is a good argument. However, if you look at the vote breakdown, I know Theron and Alexis want to get into this too. The Democrats supported going with the $1 billion gas excise tax hike, 29.2.
Yeah.
And the Republicans who were pushing the tax cut a deal with the Democrats and the state DOT to have minority set-asides. That's why the Democrats smiled. I know you both are chuckling over this, and that's how the Democrat votes came over for this.
I'm not chuckling. I'm thinking that's a good thing that they did realize that they needed to expand the minority participation and all spread the wealth around the state.
Absolutely, and Democrats are to be commended for that. But one of the things that also on the Republican side that we saw, if you really look at the Republican breakdown, there were 6 Republicans who voted against this bill. And if you really look at the breakdown, there were a lot of quote-unquote Tea Party, sort of libertarians of the Republican Party that voted against it. But what was interesting is that the Republican leadership was really able to whip their votes to get this passed. But it was clearly something going on with the Democrats, for 51 Democrats.
You know what the deal is there, and as well as I do.
Well, I think that transportation is very important to Georgians, and ultimately it's going to be very interesting what the Senate does.
Well, I got caught up short on this. Did they remove the Delta tax break?
No, that is still in there, along with, and I'm glad to see that. I think those tax breaks need to go away. What, didn't Delta get too?
Well, first of all, hold on.
You're saying they removed it?
No, they did not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
No.
First of all, Phil, let's not call it the Delta.
It's for all of the. It's for all
of the airline carriers.
Yeah.
Now,
They
the other
changed
thing
it.
that the airline carriers have done is that, and it's going to come out here very soon, is that they paid $55 million into with the state general fund, and also right now Georgia has the 11th highest fuel tax, and so if this bill goes through as it's currently written, Georgia will probably move to 8 or 7. I mean, we will surpass Massachusetts, and right now New York is ranked 44th, and even in Texas they don't.
So
even
you're
have
supporting the tax breaks for the profitable
No,
airlines?
I think the first thing to be fair is that let's not label it as a Delta tax.
That's how it all started.
Yeah, but also let's also point out that they voted for this tax break to be permanent in 2012.
And that was stupid.
Well, but it's law and it's fact.
Also,
Well, they're gonna repeal it.
following the initial vote to give the tax break, the feds then passed a regulation to say that the funds have to be used for airport or airport maintenance support. So now the state has to comply with that order, so they're really not going to, they'll get a windfall for 2 years, but within 3 years, according to the federal law.
Now, Phil, you and Insider Advantage did some polling. You've already called this a tax increase, the transportation package. I'm still not sure it is.
Dick, you think about it a second. When you're trying to raise 700,000 or $1 billion in new money, you're going to have to raise taxes somewhere. I think even you get that.
No, I do.
Thank you. Okay.
Well,
Anyhow.
Representative Stover came out and said recently in the AJC article that was written by Aaron Goldshanen that said that people are going to perceive this as a $500 million tax increase.
Well, and you're going right into the Insider Advantage poll too, because
that's what I want to get to.
They actually asked the question with the reduced gas tax. The numbers will be even worse when you go back to the $1 billion package. There were only 26% of Georgians for this. 45% were against, 29% undecided. Not surprising. The numbers would be even worse, I think. And with GOP numbers with the base, it's even more unpopular.
Right.
But it was a big win for the speaker. I mean, I think he's been pretty vocal that he wanted the House to do something.
Well, and the governor, too.
And the governor as well.
But Theron Larry O'Neill, the majority leader, doesn't do anything without the speaker's approval. He was trying to reduce the tax hike, but failed.
Well, I don't get into Republican,
I'm
relationships.
just telling you.
as far as
I'm
how
just
they
telling
work.
you.
You know how those people work, right?
That's left up to
wanted you to know.
You
Just
figured
wanted
that
you to
out.
All
know.
I'm saying is that it was a big win for the governor, big win for the speaker. Now we got to wait to see.
Well,
what
let's
happens.
talk
I think it's a
about the
big win.
Senate.
I think it's a big win for the state. But what do you think is going to happen in the Senate?
Well, let's talk about that because, number one, they were totally surprised. And I was surprised. I think a lot of us were surprised. I'm going to look into the crystal ball, and it's not going to fly, especially with these poll numbers. And the people aren't prepared to do this.
Well, and it
in my
requires a
opinion.
constitutional amendment, is that right? And so
They're going to have to round up the
it's-
votes.
Right, and so the people will have the final say, right?
Right.
All right, the Senate, for its part this week, passed the Religious Liberty Bill, which mirrors federal legislation signed by Bill Clinton. Mike Bowers and some others are against it, but I don't have any problem with it. It's already federal law.
No, and I think the Republicans ironed out some of the difficulties. They passed it. I think that it's probably going to go through the House.
Well, there's some Democrats that have raised some very, I think, valid concerns about this. One, it was how the bill was sort of on the Senate floor. It was rushed out of committee, a committee that Senator McCoon actually chairs. The second thing is that Senator Elena Parent and Senator Thompson have raised questions about this being a reaction to the Alabama Supreme Court basically ordering a halt in Alabama with same-sex marriage.
This is the same bill that we had last year. It's not a reaction to anything.
It is a reaction because it got started passing, and it has passed and adopted by some other states in direct reaction to the DOMA bill being ruled unconstitutional. And I also think that Mike Bowers, who's the former state attorney general, had a very eloquent piece in the AJC on Friday writing against it.
Well, he's being paid to parrot whatever the party line is or whatever the gay lobby line is. So I like Mike Bowers, but you have to discount when someone's paid to give all these arguments.
All right, we're running out of time here. We can't do it all on what the General Assembly is up to, but what we can say is that Uber, the popular car company, and I'm just amazed at how widespread that popularity is, they lost big in the legislature this week.
Well,
they're going to have to maintain high insurance limits.
Well, not so fast, and I want to be fully disclosed. My firm, we represent Uber in other markets, not here in Georgia. But there's a Senate Bill 196 that's probably, by the time folks are looking at this show, would have been introduced and probably come out of committee or discussed in committees, being sponsored by Senator Brandon Beach. And this is a more neutral bill that actually protects Uber, because the misconception about Uber is that it's one of the most popular apps, and people in Georgia and all across America support it.
I'm aware of that.
But also, when people hit accept on a ride, they're actually insured, and they do extensive background checks for their drivers. But this bill is not as strong as those two bills that actually came out of the House. It actually is very neutral for the insurance companies, and also it protects the riders and the drivers. So I just would say stay tuned. I think Uber is going to fight this and ultimately win.
I think you're right, and I'm a little surprised that Republicans are supposed to be for
free
competition
markets
and free
competition.
markets.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
That didn't happen so far.
Yeah,
And
no.
not
Right.
taxi cab monopolies.
Exactly.
Right.
All right, we got to get out. We should mention that horse racing came out of a Senate committee. I'd like to see it, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. When we come back, Georgia's efforts to become a car place are moving ahead. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
I mentioned that a Senate committee passed horse racing. Phil wants me to clarify that means parimutuel betting. That there would
Wagering,
be
he said.
wagering.
Not
That
betting,
would
but
be
not gambling.
gambling right
Right.
here in River City. I'm Georgia.
Thank you, Alexis, for
But,
trying to
yeah,
clarify
but
that.
gambling
And
is already
it's
illegal
local
in
option. It would be a
Georgia.
local option bill
Yeah.
if the county
Way to
wanted
keep
it.
them straight, Alexis.
All right. Now, this deal with Daimler-Benz, Mercedes, and that big site down in Pooler near Savannah, this is twice that Daimler-Benz has stiffed Georgia. Roy Barnes thought he had him just before his reelection campaign, and they pulled out. Now I think Governor Deal thought he had him, and they're not going to do it. So I don't know what's going on with that. We're getting their headquarters. That's fine, and that's all good. But now we learn that Volvo, which is owned by the Chinese, are looking at Georgia. I don't know. I guess it's between Georgia and South Carolina.
Yeah, send them down to Pooler.
Yeah, Pooler spot's waiting. And then, of course, we know that the governor, we believe that the governor and Chris Carr, the Commissioner of Industry and Trade, went to London to talk to Land Rover and Jaguar, as they say in those commercials that drive me crazy. Jaguar, please. So we're still moving on that front. Now, on a sad note, this week Beverly Hall died. She, of course, is the former Atlanta school superintendent who was to be tried in this cheating conspiracy trial, this giant trial that's gone on for about 5 months. And sadly, Beverly Hall didn't get there. She had breast cancer and she died this week. I think that that's going to have some impact on the trial, Alexis.
I agree. I think it will. And also, the jurors happen to be on break right now, and so
they're going to know about it.
They're going to know about it, even though they're instructed not to pay attention, not to read the news, and all that stuff. So I'm sure it will have some impact. And the whole case was a racketeering case. Like she's some mob boss who ordered everybody to cheat. And with her passing, I think people will be more sympathetic about it, and they still haven't proved that she ordered people to cheat.
Well, I think I saw one of the lawyers said that there's not one single piece of evidence that points to an order from Beverly Hall.
Well, I disagree with that somewhat because.
But there certainly was pressure.
Well, there was pressure, and also she was told there was cheating.
To perform.
She was told there was cheating. People walked into her office and she said, "I don't want to hear about it." So to me, that is a complete betrayal of the children of this system. It's also a cover-up, and you're forgetting the shredded documents that there was a wink and a nod at from her. This is the testimony you're not telling us.
That's gone now, and I don't know how that impacts the jury. It's an unprecedented trial.
But even though she's gone, I think you still have the betrayal, the fact that she failed the system, and that she orchestrated this culture of corruption.
Yeah, she did not orchestrate a culture of corruption.
That's what the testimony says.
The testimony, that's their opinion. But what she did was she orchestrated a culture of expectation that students could learn and teachers could teach, and everybody would perform.
And so she could get bonuses when the scores went higher, right?
Well, that was the onus for that was on the school board and the people who hired her.
I guess she can't use those bonuses now.
Well, may she rest in peace. Let's extend our condolences.
Well, that's fine, but let's not forget the betrayal that she presided over for mostly African-American children.
Well, that's why we have a trial, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to all come out. But again, I don't want us to sort of be insensitive that, through it all, she still lost her life.
Aren't you outraged at what she did?
Well, I kind of agree with Darren.
What happened.
I agree with Darren. Let's let her rest in peace for the moment.
Yeah, let her rest in peace, Phil.
And let's see what the jury says.
Some compassion.
Now, the Braves complex, between the retail and the stadium, now we learn that complex in Cobb is going to exceed $1 billion. That's a lot of money. And I went out there and looked at it. I happened to be in Cobb County.
Now you have information.
Did you fight any traffic to get out there?
No, traffic was fine, and as I've said before, there are lots of ways to get there. The only thing I can't figure out is, where do they put the bridge?
Well, let's talk about that bridge.
And who pays for the bridge?
Let's talk about both of those
And by the way,
items.
it would be a very long walk.
Well, it would
Yes.
be. It would be. This has been. You remember, we have all agreed. I think you might agree that they're making this up as they go along with what Dick is talking about. You and I have always agreed on that.
That's what it seems.
And what's happening is the phony price tag that they're giving is too low. We all know this. We know how much bridges cost now. They keep adding onto this bridge the bells and whistles, and there's no money budgeted for this bridge. The taxpayers will be stuck for it, the Cobb County taxpayers.
I think it's making the decision by Mayor Kasim Reed look sweeter and sweeter every day, that basically this was a deal that is going to cost the Cobb County taxpayers a significant amount, but this has gone up to $1 billion. That's a significant amount of money for a stadium.
Well, having circled it and driven it this week, I'm going to amend some of the things I said about ease of getting there. It's not exactly what I thought. It's going to be very difficult to get to, and they absolutely, from my eyeballing it, they've got to have a bridge.
Well, they do. They do. It's just that I agree with you. I think the people were never told the true story on that. In fact, I spoke with Commission Chairman Tim Lee, and I said, "Can we get the full story on the cost?" And he started chuckling like you.
All right, staying in Cobb County for a minute, Home Depot gets $20 million in tax breaks to stay there. They do what every company does now, rattle the cage.
Was it 200
I thought it
million?
was 200 million.
200.
Not 20.
You know, that is a bad precedent. It's almost blackmail. And I'd like to know how Home Depot is going to reinvest.
Every county.
Well, it's wrong. And I'd like to know how Home Depot is going to reinvest into Cobb County. That's a very...
But what I think Home Depot probably is going to show is that having that headquarters there and having that presence definitely does a lot for that local economy. And I think that Cobb County was smart to keep Home Depot in their county. I mean, because it just raises the profile of the county.
Well, I agree, but it's the practice that is now becoming the rule every time.
I would have called their bluff. With the Braves coming in, are they really going to move?
Well, here's the thing.
I would have called their bluff.
They might have because of the traffic.
That's what actually sparked it, is that once
Right.
they gave that deal to the Braves, companies like Home Depot, other companies in that area that I
Said,
won't
"Okay,
name,
let's get
are
outta
saying,
here."
all right, well, we're either going to leave or you're going to
You're
match
right.
some of those incentives.
I understand.
All right, when we come back, we'll have some more information about the firing of the Fulton County manager and the hiring of a new man. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
Now, I've been ambitious and eager most of my career, but there are lots of jobs that you couldn't get me to sniff or go near. And one of them would be being the county manager of Fulton County. I just can't imagine that. Now we've had a high-level executive, Dick Anderson, who's run a phone company and the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, and he's going to become the Fulton County manager. He was hired last Wednesday. First, Patrick O'Connor being fired. Phil, you didn't get to weigh in on that because you were away.
Right, I was gone last
Patrick
week.
O'Connor's a terrific budget guy, and I was surprised that they fired him.
Patrick O'Connor, I want to salute his public service because he was the longtime finance director. He knew the numbers. He often tried to, successfully tried to talk to the commission, Democrat and Republican. You just flat out can't do this. The numbers aren't there. And he was actually stabbed in the back by somebody who recorded him for honesty. He was talking about all the troubles and failures of Fulton County at a public meeting.
Oops.
And oops is the right thing. And so I just thought that
I just can't imagine, though,
wrong.
that Dick Anderson, who's run some big operations, he's a big timer, right? Not to be confused with Richard Anderson of Delta Airlines, by the way. This is Dick Anderson.
AT&T, former executive.
Yes, former executive at AT&T. Why would he want that job? Do you get it?
Well, let's flip and look at it from a different point of view. I mean, it's good for Fulton County.
It is good for Fulton County, yeah.
Patrick O'Connor, I agree with you, served the county in a very honorable way. But now they give someone in there with credibility, hopefully someone that can restore trust, and that can have a working relationship with the county commission to get things done and move the county forward.
Yeah.
And I hope you're right. I hope you're right. He is known, I'll add a footnote, he is known for being pretty blunt and butting some heads, and I'm wondering if his style is going to go over way. He could go the way of Patrick O'Connor if somebody records him.
All right, President Obama's coming to, you know, we try not to do national news on this broadcast, but I got to say, in a week where the president vetoes the Keystone Pipeline and the veto override fails, when Netanyahu comes and speaks to Congress, when we find out, to my just absolute astonishment, that Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, ran her own email server out of a room in her house, you kind of got to talk about that stuff. But let's talk first with, start, Theron, with you. Why is President Obama coming? Thursday, there wasn't much detail.
Well, he's coming on Tuesday to do two things. One, he's coming to Georgia Tech, and he's going to make some remarks and announcements around his plan for education. And then secondly, he's going to do a fundraiser for the DNC because before we know it, we're going to be involved in the 2016 presidential race. And Phil, I just want you to know I did submit your vitals and that I'm waiting to hear back, and we want to make sure we get you on the tarmac when President
Thank
Obama
you.
comes in.
Thank
And we're going to have you placed right there so you can greet him.
I have a few words to say to him.
You'll place him on the tarmac, all right, with a target on his back.
but no, I think this is very interesting that, and Alexis was going to talk about this as well, but he's sort of doing a southern swing, and I think that's very important.
Right, right. He also is going to Selma to mark the 50th anniversary of that march that led to the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and so then he's going to South Carolina State, I believe, and some other places.
Will
where he'll be
the
doing a
Jewish
southern
Democrat
swing.
donations be going down after his snit against Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, I raised that question. How
yeah.
does he get a Jewish vote, John Lewis?
When
he boycotts Benjamin?
For one thing, there was a poll that showed the majority of the Jewish people in Israel did not want him to come and do this, as well as there are a number of people in the United States.
His political party is ahead now in the polling. That's an old poll.
No, but here we
No.
go. This whole notion against John Lewis doing the right thing by protesting this speech. You showed me a member of Congress that has a stronger voting record to support the American-Israel relationship than John Lewis. At a time where this administration has given Israel a total of $120 billion, for Congressman Lewis to sort of be criticized for
You know what? He always backed up Cynthia McKinney, who hated Israel. He covered for McKinney all those years.
And
That's not
other
true.
Democrats joined him. It was about protocol.
Right.
The speaker cannot invite a prime minister from any country or any place
Well,
to speak
come
without
on, that's the
properly
liberal
notifying.
line, and you
No,
know it.
it's
And
not.
you say it-
Proper
you say it-
protocol.
let me
We're running
tell
out of
you,
time, but
I think David Scott is a great example of a Georgia African-American congressman who did the right thing. He said, you know what, I had some problems with how it came down, but I listened to everyone, and I think that was the right way to go. I commend David Scott.
Well, that may be another point of view as well, but I think the point is that so much havoc has gone on in Washington, and the way things are going and not going with a government stalemate, with the Congress saying the president is overreaching his authority, now the Congress is overreaching its authority according to the
That's been going on for 200. That's been going on for 200
Well,
years.
so that's what I'm saying. So everybody has an opinion about what is right, the right
I
thing
hope you
to
can
do.
raise
We have
some
to get out. I
Jewish
want a
money.
yes or no answer, real quick.
What?
Should the American Secretary of State have her own email address off a server in her house, Alexis?
Well, yeah. Why not?
Okay.
But she should also have one from the State Department,
Theron, what do
too.
you think?
I need more information to make a
Phil?
decision on that.
No.
No. All right.
She should have. Everybody can have their own personal
She's
email.
violated the State
Sure.
Department's own rules.
All right,
Well,
when we
it's
come
still-
back, happier news. I think we're going to have a group hug for Shaquille O'Neal. Stay with us. No. What did I say? Dominique Wilkins. I don't want to hug Shaquille O'Neal. Where did that come from? See you in a minute.
Time now for this week's winners and losers.
All right, and we'll begin the winners and losers with Theron. I know where you're going.
Well, absolutely. Dominique Wilkins, true legend, was honored with a statue unveiling. So big winner, Atlanta Hawks and Dominique Wilkins, who was the best Hawks player to ever play the game. My loser is actually the Ferguson Police Department. We have uncovered the Department of Justice that there was racial profiling, racial discrimination that was going on in that department even before Mike Brown was murdered. So they're going to be my loser this week.
Yeah, but the national lie that was hands up, don't shoot by the Gentle Giant, Eric Holder, when he had to take that back this week, that was pretty sorry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Phil, go ahead.
Well, I've got some winners. Sad to say their deaths, but Thomas Stanley was the Georgia State University professor that wrote *The Millionaire Next Door*. I know all of you have read that, and he was in a car crash over in Marietta. And then we lost a longtime Fulton County public servant, former Commissioner Tom Lowe. So condolences to their families. And you know, there was a loser, that Cobb County judge that was unceremoniously asked to resign, and he did, Frank Cox. You know, over the last 2 or 3 years, the Judicial Qualifications Commission has done a great job with its investigation, uncovering shocking corruption with all throughout the state in all regions, with judges that are just abusing their office. And you know, abusing attorneys, I think it's terrible when they insult. Attorneys have a job to do, and some of these judges think they're king.
Alexis?
Right, and on the flip side of that, Joyette Holmes was appointed to replace Frank Cox at the magistrate position in Cobb County, and she's the first African-American woman to be appointed. So congratulations to her. She's a winner. And the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival is a winner because it is now the largest Jewish film festival in the world. They've got their official head count of 38,000 people in the audience. And then finally, I think that's all I've got.
And I just figured out how I made that mistake.
Huh.
Pre-game here, when Theron was describing the Dominique ceremonies,
Right.
I wrote down for some reason Shaquille. That's where
I'm
it
sorry,
came from.
I'm starting to
No, it's my fault. That's where it came from. That's funny. UGA hoops on the rise. Tough they couldn't beat Kentucky, but still, it's a good show. Tech hoops not on the rise, not at all. And we will see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.